Hello, students. Welcome. Today we will be covering a new chapter. We will be doing a part of it though, but yes, a very substantial part of it, right? So the chapter is the rise of new kingdoms. Yes, and so to give you a small overview of what all we will be covering, right? We will start with understanding um, the start of the medieval era, right? So you had the dynasties and kingdoms of North, and how the different Rajput clans and kingdoms emerged, right, all across the subcontinent. First in the north, then we will talk about some of the dynasties of the Deccan. Yes, and how this struggle for wealth, for control, right, led to the tripartite struggle. We will be covering in this particular tutorial till this particular point, right? But after that, we have the Muslim invaders from northwest, right? How they came into the subcontinent and altered the dynamics and other dynasties of South India. And lastly, we will be having a very deeper insight into Cholas, how their administration ran. Then we talk about what kind of initiatives did the empire have in terms of administration, in terms of architecture, the culture, right? So all of this we will be delving in this particular chapter. So let's begin. So firstly, let's talk about rise of Rajputs, right? So now, students, Rajput was derived from a Sanskrit word known as Rajputra, means son of a king. Now, Rajputs, basically, students primarily they rose to prominence. They became very prominent, right? Got a lot of fame in the 6th and the 12th centuries, right? Um, and in the North Indian history, particularly, it is known as the Rajput era because all the kingdoms, all the dynasties that were flourishing were by Rajput kings and emperors, right? Now, how did what's their origin? How did they come in the subcontinent, right? So there are two theories on this. One particular bunch of scholars believe that they are descendants of the Central Asian tribes, right, who settled in the subcontinent after the Hun invasion, while other scholars, bunch of scholars, believe that Rajputs are derived. They come from three or vanshas, right? So you have the Suryavanshi, the Chandravanshi, and the Agnivanshi. Suryavanshi are the clans of the solar dynasty, the sun dynasty. Chandravanshi is they come from the moon dynasty, Chandra, moon, right? The Agnivanshi are from the fire dynasty, descendant from Agnipala. Okay, so on this note, let's look at now on some of the Rajputs who dominated the medieval India, that is between 750 AD to 1000 AD, right? So you have, so this is all North India. You have the Tomars, the Solankis, the Chandelas, Ghandewalas, the Chauhans, the Paramaras, then you have the Gurjara Pratiharas and the Palas, right? We will be focusing on these as part of our North Indian dynasties, right? So now Tomars, now students, you would be amazed to know that it was the Tomars who formed Dilika, today's Delhi, way back in the 8th century, right? So the city of Dilika was formed by Tomar rulers in the 8th century, and they were annexed by the Chauhans, right? So Chauhans were controlling their territories after the Tomars. Then Solankis were primarily based in Gujarat, right? They're also known as Chalukyas of Gujarat. And the most powerful Solanki ruler is Siddharaja. And some of the most popular architecture is the Sun Temple of Modera and the Dilwara Temple of Mount Abu. I have pictures right here, right? So do you see this, students? This is the Sun Temple of Modera, right? And this is the Dilwara Temple of Abu Dhabi, right? So you see how beautiful this is, absolutely beautiful, the details, and this is way back in the 8th century, right? And absolutely beautiful, beautiful architecture we have from this particular period, right? Um, so yeah, that's by Solankis of Gujarat, right? Now you have to understand this, students. Gujarat was a hub. Gujarat, you have a lot of trade, right? It was one of the major centers in the Indian Ocean trade. So trade centers are usually they flourish a lot. They have a lot of money flowing in, right? A lot of trade all across the world happening, right? So Gujarat was very rich, right? And the largest city is Anhilvara. Okay, so as of now, we've studied the Tomars who built the city of Dilika way back in the 8th century. Then we talked about Solankis who primarily ruled Gujarat, and Siddharaja was the most powerful ruler. And they have some beautiful architecture coming in, the Sun Temple, the Dilwara Temple. And if possible, students do visit these places and go to these areas, right? And try to understand the intricacy of the the monuments that they've built. Absolutely beautiful, right? So next what we have is Chandelas of Bundelkhand, right? So they were ruling in the area of Bundelkhand. The most powerful ruler is Kirtivarman. The capital was Khajuraho, and these people again had the most beautiful temples from this particular time period, right? So Khajuraho, if you've so Khajuraho, this is in Madhya Pradesh, right? If you've ever been to Khajuraho temples, they're just beautiful, beautiful temples, very intricately carved and amazing architecture, right? So that's Chandelas of Bundelkhand for you. Then what we have is Gandhawalas. Now Gandhawalas students, they ruled around Kannauj, right? Now, Kannauj bache, please keep in mind this will become a very controversial topic in just a couple of slides, and you will understand why, right? Very soon. So, for now, Ghandewalas were ruling around Kannauj, and the most famous ruler is Jayachandra. And in 1194 AD, Muhammad Ghori defeated Jayachandra, right? So that's Ghandewalas for you, ruling Kannauj. Chandelas ruling Khajuraho, and around areas around Khajuraho, Solankis ruling Gujarat, and Tomars around Delhi. Then you have Chauhans bache. Chauhans were ruling around Delhi and Ajmer, also known as Chahamanas, right? And the most famous Chauhan ruler is Prithviraj Chauhan. So Chauhans, also known as Chahamanas, ruling around Delhi and Ajmer. Most famous ruler is Prithviraj Chauhan. I understand, students, this might be coming across as too much for you to understand, but trust me, this is the easiest way to go about it, right? Then you have the Paramaras, the famous ruler. They were very famous, right? The capital is Dhar, and they ruled around the Malwa region. So this Malwa region is again in central India, right? So they ruled around the Malwa region. Most powerful ruler is Bhoj Parmara, and their popular architecture is Neelkanteshwar Temple of Udaipur. Let me show you. I have a picture right here. So yes, this is Neelkanteshwar Temple of Udaipur, built by the Paramaras, right? So Sun Temple. This is the Sun Temple, students. Right to the right, top right. In the middle, you have this temple uh, from Abu Dhabi, and to the left is the Neelkanteshwar temple. Neelkanteshwar temple is the Paramaras temple built by Paramaras. Both of these are from, the other two are from which dynasty? If you recall, it's the Solankis. Amazing. So on this end, I will just do a quick recap of all the dynasties we've studied so far. We have the Tomars who built Delhi, right, in the 8th century. Um, then you have the Solankis, also known as Chalukyas of Gujarat. Siddhi Raja was the most famous Solanki ruler, and he built the popular architecture of the Solankis includes sun temples of Modhera and the Dilwara temple of Mount Abu. Then Gujarat was one of the major hub of Indian Ocean trade. Then you have the Chandelas of Bundelkhand, with Kirtivarman being the most famous ruler and Khajuraho being the capital, and they built beautiful, beautiful temples, right? Then Ghandewalas, who ruled around Kannauj, and Jayachand was the most famous ruler who was defeated by Muhammad Ghori in 1194 AD. Right. Then you have the Chauhans who ruled around Delhi and Ajmer, and also known as Chahamanas. And Prithviraj Chauhan was the most famous Chauhan ruler. Then you have the Parmaras who ruled around Malwa, and Dhar was the capital. And Bhoj Parmara was one of the most famous and powerful ruler. And the temple built by them is Neelkanteshwar Temple in Udaipur. Right. The next two prominent North Indian empires that were ruling, the kingdoms that were ruling here, one is the Gurjara Pratiharas and the Palas, right? So now Gurjara Pratihara students is, they ruled in Western India, parts of Rajasthan, and Central India. They had a vast expanse of India under them. Most powerful ruler is Nagabhatta I, and other important rulers are Vatsaraja and Bhoja. So Raja Bhoj is very important. He was the one who established the largest empire in northern India, and Kannauj was the capital. So you might be wondering, how did this capital change to Kannauj? Because students, the time period that we're covering, right, is between 750 to 1000 AD. This is a huge time period, right? So not one empire will be ruling during this time. A lot of empires come and go. There are wars happening, right? People fight, kings fought for control, for territory. So at one particular period of time, yes, Ghandavalas were ruling. They were very much uh, very prominent in the northern India. But then, yes, we also have the Gurjara Pratiharas who were ruling at another point of time within this time period between 750 AD and 1000 AD. Right. Uh, so then you have Nagabhatta I being the most important ruler, and other important rulers are Vatsaraja and Bhoj. So Raja Bhoj, to talk about him, students, he established the largest empire in northern India, and during him, Kannauj was the capital. Right. He is also known as Adivaraha, and he was succeeded by his son Mahendrapala. Now, we know a lot about Gurjara Pratiharas through the inscriptions that we found in Haryana, which also tell us that they had trade relations with Southeast Asia, right? So they had trade relations with Central Asia, and we know about them through. I'm so sorry, students. It was the Palas who had who had trade relations with Southeast Asia. Gurjara Pratiharas had trade relations with Central Asia, right? And so we have accounts also. Al Masaudi was a foreign traveler who has written a lot about them. So that's how we know about them. We know about Gurjara Pratiharas, right? In 1018, Muhammad Ghazni defeated Pratihara ruler. Right. So this is about the Gurjara Pratiharas. Then we have the Palas. Palas were founded by Gopala in 750. Right. Now the most beautiful fact, interesting fact that I particularly find about Palas is the fact that Gopala was an elected king. Do you realize what that means? Elections happened. This is a democratically elected ruler. It is beautiful, right? Just to even think about it, that way back in 750, people elected a king for themselves, right? This is new, unheard of, and very different, which is amazing. Okay, so the Palas were founded by Gopala in 750 AD, and other great Pala rulers are Dharampal and Devpal. Now, these Pala students, they experienced a couple of problems as well from the Pratiharas and Rashtrakutas because they were constantly fighting, right? They launched fights against the Palas. So, therefore, because of this, they could not extend their control to Kannauj. Who they? The Palas. So Palas wanted to extend their control to occupy Kannauj, but they were constantly being threatened by, they faced problems in terms of they had to fight wars with the Pratiharas and the Rashtrakutas, right? So it created an issue for them. Then the empire extended from Assam to Orissa and even parts of Nepal. So it is huge, right? Then Palas were patrons of Buddhism. They followed Buddhism. They had trade with Southeast Asia, and they were succeeded by Sena dynasty, who were later defeated by a commander of the Delhi Sultanate. So this is about Palas. So far we studied about Palas, the Gurjara Pratiharas, the Solankis, Tomars, Chandelas of Bundelkhand, Ghandawalas, Chauhans, and Parmaras, right? These were different kingdoms and dynasties ruling the subcontinent during 750 AD and 1000 AD, between this time period, right? On this note, this is some of the architecture. Now we will move to the Deccan, right? Let's move to the Deccan and see what we have here. So first, I'd like to begin with the Rashtrakuta Empire, right? So these people, do you see this map here, students? This map here on my screen, the area marked is the region of Rashtrakutas. It's the area on which Rashtrakutas ruled, right? 1 second. Yes. So they rose to power in the 8th century. They ruled for 200 years between 750 AD and 970 AD. Right. Then the founder was Danti Durga, also known as Dantivaram, and capital is Malkhed. The famous rulers of the Rashtrakuta Empire is Govinda, Krishna, and Amog Varsha. They were fighting against Gurjara Pratiharas of North, whom we just read about, and the Pallavas of Kanchipuram, right? So they were constantly fighting, but at the same time, students, they were patrons. They really enjoyed, they propagated and promoted art, architecture, and as well as literature. So in architecture, they built the Khalisa temples in Ellora and even carved the caves in Elephanta near Mumbai. So have you all, if anyone of you has been to Ellora, um, and the Elephanta caves in Mumbai, you know what I'm talking about. It was them who built this way back in the 750 AD in the 8th century, students. Then they were famous for being great warriors as well as administrators. It is not easy to rule, to conquer such a huge empire, right? It was not easy at that time. So yes, they are very famous for being great warriors, that they were able to conquer so much, right? And as well as great administrators. Now, this is the Khalisa temple I just mentioned. I just talked about the Khalisa temple, right? So this is the Khalisa temple. One second, let me show you. So you see, I just told you about the Khalisa temples of Ellora, right? And the Elephanta caves. So this is a picture from the Elephanta caves. This is caving done in those caves, students. It's beautiful. If you ever get a chance, do explore these regions. This was built by the Rashtrakutas, right? On this note, let's study about other kingdoms of the Deccan. So you have 4 more kingdoms of the Deccan. You have the Chalukyas, the Yadavas, the Hoysalas, and the Kakatiyas, right? So the Chalukyas. Now, students, Chalukyas are also known as the later Chalukyas or the Western Chalukyas. The most famous Chalukya ruler is Vikram Kanta. Coming to the Yadavs, Yadavs were the founder of Yadav kingdom is Bhilama in the 12th century. Now, they were ruling over the area between Narmada and Godavari, and they're famous for the trade prosperity as well as the riches that existed in the kingdom. Now, they were annexed by the Khalji rulers in the 14th century, right? So they were ruling again from the 12th to the 14th century, right? That's the Yadavs for you. Then we have the Kakatiyas. Now their region lays between Krishna and Godavari. They ruled between 12th and the 13th centuries and followed Shaivism. Shaivism, students, for those of you who do not know, Shaivism is a what do you call a sect that follows Lord Shiva, right? So they pray Lord Shiva, right? So that's Shaivism. Now they were patrons. They propagated, promoted, and yeah. So they were propagating Sanskrit as well as Telugu, right? Now they were taken over by sultans of Delhi. So that's the Kakatiyas for you. Between the 12th and the 13th century, the Yadavas between the 12th and the 14th century, and the Chalukyas, right? So then, lastly, we have the Hoysalas of Dwar Samudra, right? The most important ruler of Hoysalas is Vishnuvardhan, right? They ruled over the present day Karnataka and they were annexed again by Delhi Sultanate. So the Kakatiyas, the Hoysalas, right? They were all taken over by Delhi Sultanate. On this note, students, I want you to focus on a lot of things. A, empires came, they annexed other regions as well. They took over other regions as well. At the same time, some of them lost to other kings, right? And they had to, and that's how they died. So there was a continuous struggle and conflict, right, for control and wealth. This led to a tripartite struggle. How and between whom is what we'll study now. So now, students, this is a map, right? And we will now talk about the Kannauj triangle. Right? So here we have Kannauj, and Kannauj, students, was a source of conflict. Why? Because this region was very wealthy, it had a lot of resources, and most important, it had Ganga banks around it, right? Which is very fertile. Now, why would people want such a fertile area? People would want such a fertile area because fertile means good irrigation, means good agriculture, right? You can grow a lot, as well as you can grow as a kingdom because you have lot more with you, right? So everybody wanted to take over Kannauj because this is one hot spot, right? So students, Kannauj was a source of conflict for centuries. The Palas, here you have the Palas, then you have the Gurjara Pratiharas as well as the Rashtrakutas. They were fighting continuously for the control of Kannauj, right? For the wealth, resources, as well as the fertility that this particular plain provided. Now, this struggle between the Gurjara Pratiharas, the Palas, and the Rashtrakutas is known as the tripartite struggle. Right now, what happened was that none of them, as the result of this, was that none of them could actually rule Kannauj for long periods of time. Yes, for short periods of time, definitely some were ruling Kannauj at some point or the other, but none of them could hold their power, their control over Kannauj, right? That, like, just the way they held on to the dynasties for like 200 years or something like that, right? They could not hold their power over Kannauj, right? But for short periods of time, definitely they ruled over Kannauj at some point or the other, right? So the result was that this continuous war between these three, it weakened three of them, right? And none could rule over Kannauj for long. Now, Gurjara Pratiharas, as a result, were later on succeeded by Chalukyas. The Palas were overthrown by the Sena dynasty, and the Rashtrakutas, once again, they also faced lot of issues, right? Uh, so now what we have is, one second, students. Yeah. So this was the tripartite struggle, which was a struggle and conflict for control and wealth. right? With this, I end the first part. I hope you've enjoyed, you've understood what we've talked about. I realize it might be a lot to take in, but I know for a fact that you would enjoy something like this. And yes, hope to see you all soon for the next tutorial as well as the class.